Welcome to the Fantasy Happy Hour. Fantasy Happy Hour. Presented by Sportsneak. With your hosts, Justin Sauce and Terry Licious. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Boom. Welcome back. Episode 78, Fantasy Happy Hour. We got the playoffs. First season with the new kind of format where we got the extra teams in here, which is nice and exciting. Get that a little bit of playoff action. We're going to be covering the entire weekend slate. So if you're playing on FanDuel or DraftKings, that is the Saturday to Monday slate, all 6 games. It's just tournament mode, no captain or showdown mode for this episode. But we'll just jump right into it. You want to start us off, Taryn, with your QB pick?
Sure. I'm kind of holding out on my QB here. Like, I went through the list, like there's some really good matchups and very familiar matchups. Like, there's a lot of those games where those teams have seen each other twice. So we got lots to look at, but I actually went to one of those games where they've seen each other twice, but on the other side of the ball, waiting for the late Monday hammer here, I'm going to Kyler Murray, actually, not Matt Stafford. I think Kyler Murray's going to be very low on this. Like, if you're talking 6 games, he's been playing not great in the last 3-4 weeks. He was also hurt for a stint of it. And then he comes out in week 18 and his accuracy was not very good. So, like, a lot of people are going to have bad taste in their mouth with Kyler Murray, but I think he gets there with his legs. He's still been rushing for 40 to 70 yards a game. And if he can have a good throwing day in this game, and I think this will be a bit of a shootout. The Rams D hasn't looked great as of late. Like, they've been giving up points. So call this the Monday Night Hammer. And both games so far with the Rams, Kyler Murray's had 22.6 and 22.4. So he does need a bigger spot than that, because this is a very good quarterback slate. We're talking Brady, Allen, Stafford, you got all the guys here. So I'm going him. Known matchup, uses legs a lot. So that's my QB pick. Where are you going?
I'm also going a little bbit probably to the lower owned side, I think anyways. And I'm going to Derek Carr versus Cincinnati. My big reasoning here is he's got, 20 some starts, 0 playoff starts. So, I think that excitement will really, especially after that big OT win that they had this Sunday, will really kind of help have that morale boosted in the locker room. But getting to some nitty gritty with him here, 17.3 fantasy points per game. The last 3 weeks have been a little bit low for him. The output's been a little bit low fantasy wise. But last week, 20 for 36, 186 yards. They did play Cincinnati week 11. So getting back to this familiarity here. He was 19 for 27 against them, 215 yards. They did lose though, 32-13. So not what you're looking for. But with the playoffs, all the coordinators are going to be bringing out all sorts of new tools and plays here. But I'm going to jump into my running back here. Hopefully we don't have any crossover of similar players or same players. Sorry if people hear the dog whining. He's really making me angry here. But I'm going to Buffalo versus New England, and I'm going to Devin Singletary. 11.8 fantasy points per game. Last week, 19 carries, 88 yards, and a TD. And they did play the Pats, obviously. Week 16, though, just a couple of weeks ago, we saw Singletary go for 12 rushes, 39 yards, 1 TD, and also getting 5 catches for another 39 yards. So pretty big week for him. That's where I'm looking at for the ball for running. This week, I do think Buffalo takes New England. But where are you headed on this side?
That's funny. We're not overlapping, but we're going to a lot of similar logic here, but I'm on the other side of the ball there. Deontay Harris for the Patriots. First reason is this Patriots team just runs the ball. Like, I want to say they're like 70-30 run to pass game. Like, they don't use Mac Jones unless they have to. So they're running the ball, and it's between him, Stevenson, Bolden, like But Harris is their main guy. It's just he's been kind of getting that rest for the end of the season because he was kind of lingering with injuries. But if we look back to this matchup, they've played each other twice, and Harris has went for 100 yards in both games, 4 total touchdowns. So running seems to be the method to get to the Bills. So I think the Patriots can run the ball here, and I just love that matchup and that history. I think they're going to lean on it just like they did every other game against the Bills. And I do believe that the Bills secondaries played really well this season. I think they had 2 of the best corner coverage guys for the season. But one thing I'll note about running back on this slate, watch the injuries. Like there is tags on almost everybody. And it's probably one of the worst running back slates I've ever kind of went to the screen because like all your top guys are injured, but like I expect Fournette back. There's news that he'll be back. So just watch because you could probably get a lot of guys low owned because everybody has a tag except for like 3 of the guys at the top. So it's kind of interesting at running back. So I jumped to wide receiver here, and I'll note somebody first. DeAndre Hopkins is 4,600, and there's a lot of talk that he might be back. So watch that. That is going to be the cheapest you'll ever get, DeAndre Hopkins. So I do like that. I just don't know if he'll be back. And we know the talent with him, and he could blow this game right up. So coming back, but I actually went to a cheaper guy. I thought I'd try to give some cheap knowledge here at wide receiver. And if anybody watched the Kansas City Chiefs last week, they saw that Tyreek Hill was battling a heel injury. And I don't think that's just going to resolve itself in a week. I mean, he was still getting on the field, but he was like getting on for one play, sitting for a bunch, getting on for one play. And the guy that fills in that role is Mecole Hardman. So I really like taking Mecole Hardman here, 4,100. He got over 100 yards on 8 receptions there last week. And he is like the Tyreek Hill light, you could call him. He's their speed guy, small guy, kind of rips a lot of screens and plays like that quick pass role where he's hoping to get more after the catch. He also does return punts and kickoffs, so that's an upside to him. And he won't get the tough matchups on the outside as much, I don't think. He'll play out of the slot a little bit and kind of change it up. So that's a kind of a cheap option as Hardman. So I'll pass it back to you for a wide receiver.
Yes, this is where I probably splurged the most with the lineup here. But I mean, there's one thing I've learned. I've tried to fade some of the best before and it doesn't work. So I'm going to the Triple Crown winner on the other side, Cooper Kupp. Hard to ignore him. Obviously got the hefty price tag there, but it's 27.8 fantasy points per game. They did meet each other week 14. He was 13 for 15, 123 yards, 1 TD. I think it was like 35 fantasy points. Hard to say until we actually get to see who's back in the game and who's not right up until that day. But I mean, he's the best. It's a safe bet, I think, or you hope. And that's where I spent majority of my money for bigger price tag pieces, was Cooper Kupp. Moving on to my tight end here. This price tag was a little bit lower than I expected, but I'm going to George Kittle, San Francisco versus Dallas. He's kind of been underutilized the past few weeks, and they've not really had him in the plays here that much. 14.9 fantasy points per game, which is obviously pretty good for a tight end. But yeah, low fantasy output the past 3 weeks. And I just didn't anticipate that if San Francisco wants to get past Dallas, they'll probably have to get him a little bit more involved. Or you would hope so anyways, to get him into the playbook here. And I'm hoping for a big week from George Kittle here. They also had quite the exciting last week here to get into the playoffs. Where are you going on tight ends?
Oh, if there's one spot that you can load up, I think it's a double tight end slate if you want it to be. Like, this is probably the best of position players you'll get. You got Kittle, Gronk, Schultz, Ertz, there's Waller's back. Like, you got all the best tight ends. Kelsey, sorry, like every of the star tight ends is pretty much in this slate. But I went to none of those guys I'm going to mention, but I went to stack with my QB, Zach Ertz, coming up. Last 4 weeks, look at Zach Ertz. This is without D-Hop, but he has had 10 targets, 9 targets, 13 targets, 11 targets. So he's averaging, 11 and a half targets per game here in the last 4 weeks. I mean, he's now like his number one option, and he's getting the yards to go with it. He's not going to blow up on the yardage scale. So if he does go for 10, you're probably going to see 80 to 100. He might break 100, but like, he's been getting TDs. He's been playing, at that target share, you just bet on it at 4,700. He's, 3,000 cheaper than the top tight ends. So Really, really great play. And I think he's one of the better stacking options with Murray. The one thing I don't like about Murray is like picking one receiver out of that because it always switches. And I have a really hard time with Arizona in that regard, but their tight end's pretty consistent lately. So I think that's a better stacking option with Kyler and maybe leaving off all the wide receivers. So it'd be an interesting way to go about this slate. But lastly, I'm going to the cheapest defense there is in this slate, and maybe that's Justin's logic too, but the Steelers Nation here. I know they're going up against Kansas City, but this is probably one of the best statistical defenses if you look at their stat sheet. I mean, they're averaging, I think, 6 sacks a game. I mean, Watt set a record now for how many sacks he got this season. They're mostly healthy again. This is the game I'm predicting, and this is kind of a long shot prediction that goes really low, dirty scoring type. Everybody banks on Kansas City being the blow up spot. I think this is just going to be a win for Kansas City in a low scoring game where defense does more for both sides than anybody. Play like the one-offs and whatever, but I think overloading this game is just not going to be my play. Maybe that's the way to go, but I really like this to be a Steelers kind of get 10 points and still lose type situation. So where's your DST, Justy?
Yeah, I went to the exact opposite side. I got the Chiefs. To me, I'm not a big fan of the Steelers offense here. Like I agree. If it goes low and dirty, that's totally fine by me. I think both defenses could get a win from both of us in that case. But the Chiefs averaging 7.7 fantasy points per game. Week 16 played Pittsburgh. They got 1 interception, 2 defensive fumble recoveries, 2 sacks, 12 fantasy points. I'm kind of in the same boat, fading probably most of the offense on both teams and sticking with this defense or Pittsburgh. I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, anything else to add for this weekend slate?
Watch for late swapping ability is all I'd say to people. Like if you're going to start 3 guys on Saturday and they kind of go mediocre, flip up your rest of your lineup, make sure it's not the same, because in a 3-day slate, you're going to have options to kind of switch out and be really different. If you're already way behind everybody, just flip it and hope that you can get within the cash line just to get a little bit of money back.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Let us know who you're going to take in the comments. Give us a subscribe, would help. This dog, I tell you. But yeah, we appreciate watching throughout the season so far. Only a couple weeks left. But yeah, see you guys. Peace.